In this video, I'm going to teach you three methods to solve using the calculator, the TI84, or it works actually the same on the TI83. So say we have the equation x squared minus 5x equals -6. So we're going to solve that using by factoring, add 6 to both sides, and we factor and we get that. So I'm using this simple equation because I first want to teach you how to do it, and then we'll do a problem where we can't solve this by hand, and then I'll teach you, we'll practice it with the calculator. So first, the simple one, what we're going to do is we're going to put x squared minus 5x plus 6 in the calculator. So press y equals, and under y1 we're going to do x squared. The button next to the alpha key is x squared minus 5x. There's x again. Make sure to do minus and not the negative button, because otherwise it'll multiply by -5x, and then plus 6. And you press graph. If your window, if you do zoom 6, that's your standard window, which is from -10 to 10 for x and -10 to 10 for y min and y max. Here, I'll show you the window. That's what the zoom standard window looks like. And then when you press graph, you see your graph like this. If we zoom in a little bit more, see, we can see from doing the original equation that the answers are 2 and 3. But we're assuming we don't know the answers. So we know it's somewhere around here. So we're going to zoom in a little bit, zoom 2, and hit enter twice so that it actually does zoom in. Okay, it zoomed a little bit too much, so I'm going to change the window to go to 5 for x max. So let's find our first 0, which looks to be at 2, but we're not sure. We're going to press second trace, which is calc, and we're going to do 0. We're looking for the 0 of this function. It asks us to go to the left bound of the 0. That means that's where y is positive. It's in the positive area on the left of 2. For example, when x is 1, it would have a y value. Right now, it's at x equals 1.25. When you do yours, it might be a different value depending on where your cursor is. You can move the cursor a little bit closer to your 0 by going to the right, or you can go further from your 0. As long as your y value is positive, which in this case it is, it's 1.19, you hit enter. Then it asks for the right bound. You take your cursor until the y value becomes negative. So there's a change in sign. So as you can see right now, my y value is negative. As soon as that occurs, you can hit enter. You can always hit enter for guess, or you can guess that you think the 0 is at 2. Either way, you either enter 2 or you just hit enter. And there it is, the 0 is at x equals 2. Okay, now we're going to repeat this process for the other 0. You can see that this is correct because the y value is 0. So we're going to repeat this. So we do second trace again. You enter either 2 or you take the cursor down to number 2, which is 0. It says it wants the left bound. So you take the cursor a little bit closer to the 0, but you want the y value to be negative. It's at the left of the second 0, this time at the left of 3. So that's a good place. I hit enter. Now it says it wants the right bound. So I take the cursor to the right until the y value becomes positive. So right now it's positive 0.4297. That's a good place. I hit enter. And it says, do you want to guess? I could either guess 3 or just guess nothing and just hit enter. And it found the other 0. And I know it's correct because the y value is 0. So that was method number 1 by doing second trace, which is calc and 0. The second method is to put in the original equations as two equations. The first one, x squared minus 5x, and let me delete this plus 6 part. And the y equals negative 6 as our second y, as our second equation. So we're going to have a parabola and a line, a horizontal line, and we are going to find the intersection of those two graphs. So I'm going to do zoom 6, which is our standard zoom. Oh, look, we got an error. This is actually, I'm glad this came up so we can address that. When you get an error, if you do go to, it takes you to where your error is, and I can already see what my error was. I didn't put the negative sign for negative 6. I put in minus 6. It's exactly what I warned you about, and now I made that mistake. So when it's negative 6, you have to use the negative sign and 6. When it's minus 6, for example, under y1, where we wanted to do minus 6, we should have used the minus sign. Okay, so now I'm going to do zoom 6. And there is the parabola and the line. Okay, so right here is where they intersect. So we want to zoom in a little bit better. Okay, so I'm going to show you zoom box right now. That's a really good zoom. Zoom box is the first one in zoom, and it is waiting for the top left corner of where you want to zoom in. So say I want to zoom in right about there. I hit enter. Then I take the cursor to the right. Say I want to end there, and I bring it down just a little bit below the line. And I hit enter. So now that's my bottom right side of the box. It's actually a square or a rectangle. Okay, and I hit enter. And now I have zoomed in that area where the intersection of the two curves occur, the parabola and the line. And I do second trace again, but this time instead of picking 0, I'm going to pick intersect, which is number 5. You can either type 5 or take the cursor down to 5. And it says, where's your first curve? So it's on the parabola on y1. As you can see, it says y1 up on the top. So you hit enter on the first curve. You just hit enter. It puts itself on the second curve, which is the horizontal line. And you hit enter again. You can hit enter for guess. So the intersection is at 3, negative 6. That's one of the intersections. We repeat this process again. So you do second trace and 5 for intersect. This time, when it asks for the first curve, take the cursor so that it's further away from the first solution that it found and closer to the second solution. Hit enter. It puts itself on the second curve. Hit enter for guess, and it finds the second intersection. That's also at 2, negative 6. So we now have used two methods using the calculator to find the solution to something. So I'm now going to show you a third method. Okay, this one is not very popular, but it's a good method. So it's especially good for things that are very hard to factor, and you know, we can't figure out two numbers that multiply to 6 and add to -5. I know that one is easy. The example I used is easy, but there are times where it is hard. So let me quickly show you with the same example how we do this. So we go to y1 and we put our equation under y1. So I'm just going to go and add that positive 6 in there. Okay, so that's our y1. I'm going to go to the main screen. So you press Math and you go to Solver. Solver is way down here, or you could do the up arrow and you can get to it faster. Oops, I passed it. My cursor is not keeping track with me. Okay, so there it is. B is Solver. You hit Enter. And the first time you press it, you might get something different than what I have. If you take your cursor up, it'll say equation solver 0 equals, and you might not have y1 in there. I've used this before, so I have y1 in there. If you don't have it, which the first time you will not have it, here's how we access it. You press vars, you go to y vars, it stands for y variables. You hit enter on function, which is the first one, and you hit enter on y1. So now you will have y1, and hit enter. Okay, it'll say x equals to something. It might not have the solution for you, depending on what you've done before. So you put the cursor on x equals, on the x equals line, and you press alpha, which is the green key. For me, it's green anyway, and enter. That's the solve button. And it solves the first one for you. So x equals 2. It might solve the second one depending on where the calculator has been. If this left to right is equal to 0, that means that's a real accurate solution. It's an exact solution. If you get something like 1.99999 and your left to right is not going to be 0, that means it's rounding. So you want to round it to 2. This is not the best way to find the solution, but it is one way. The calculator many times solves things by rounding, so you can't get away from knowing algebra, but it is a good method to check your work. So now to find 3, what we're going to do is we're going to change this to a different number, say 20 or 50. I'm just picking a number out of a hat that's away from 2. And then you do alpha again and solve, which is enter, the green. And this time it found 3 for us. Okay, so that's another way. Now I'm going to show you how to do this for a harder problem. Sometimes, especially when we do word problems, it's hard to figure out what two numbers gives us a product and a sum. So here's an example. X squared minus 4x minus 3596. Okay, so if you can't figure out what two numbers multiplied together gives you negative 3596 and adds to negative 4, you could use this solver. So we do math solver, which is at B, and y1, we've already accessed y1, and alpha, enter, and the first number is 62. If you know the first number is 62, you can just divide 3596 by 62 and you get your second number. Or you know your second number has to be a negative number because that's the way you're going to get negative 3596 when you multiply. So you're just going to put as a guess negative 100 and then you set alpha solve again, and there is our second number, negative 58. I hope this was helpful.